This is Luxe and Lens. For the single moms choosing growth over guilt, power over pain, and purpose over pressure. Raw conversations, real stories, no filters. Let's begin. Hello, lovely Luxe and Lenses. Welcome back to our next episode. This is part 3 of our series with regards to feminine and masculine energy. Again, we are so grateful for your support, your interaction. We love the fact that you're tagging friends and sharing this with friends and with family members. And I think this is also a lovely type of topic, although it is very deep, it is very heavy, it is bringing up all sorts within us. But this is a lovely thing to actually share with teenagers, with your teenage girls, so that they can actually get themselves strong, ready, and the most beautiful young adults that they can grow into. So welcome on behalf of both Courtney and myself to our next Luxe and Lens episode. And thank you again for being here, for taking the time out. And we really do hope and trust that this is beneficial to you. So I'm going to hand it over to Courtney because this is most definitely her area. I know about it, but I do not know enough about it. So I'm learning as much as everybody else. So Court, thank you. And I'm handing it over to you.
Oh, thanks, Ash. I think it has been a bit of a heavy topic, but I think it's so necessary for us to just introspect and reflect back on ourselves, in this aspect. I think it's something that really does catapult personal growth and self-understanding, which is so important to, become successful in life and whatever that means to you. But today I thought, it might be a good opportunity to reflect on our inner child and the effects that masculine and feminine energies within us have on that inner child. And I know that when people hear inner child, it can sound like really abstract or even like spiritual to people. And they kind of don't delve into what the inner child or inner child wounds actually mean. And the truth is, it's actually very simple. Your inner child is like that younger version of you that still lives inside of your emotional world, which is part of where you learned how to love and how to weather the storms of life and where your safe space was. And it formed so many, your inner child is where so many of your beliefs and value systems and your worthiness and your acceptance and your belonging stem from. And this is where we develop those inner child wounds, where our inner child kind of had to put up walls and learn defense mechanisms and how to feel safe in certain spaces in their world. And that still has a triggering effect within us as adults, because something that we might have dealt with in our childhood suddenly presents itself in our adult life, and we have that trigger reaction, as opposed to understanding the situation from a different perspective now as an adult. We still have that trauma trigger from the inner child wound, which a lot of people don't understand, and they don't deal with that, so that it no longer becomes a trigger and it's no longer a wound, but rather a lesson that happened in life, and where we can let that inner child of ours feel safe and no longer vulnerable in that space. Don't know if that makes any sense.
It absolutely makes a lot of sense. Yeah, no, it definitely does. I mean, I know, looking back, I remember, because you also kind of think that when you start doing that introspection work, that the things that do come up, you don't know if you're handling them correctly. But if they are coming up, then clearly they need to be handled. Do you know what I mean? And I remember seeing
Exactly.
it was like a life coach or something along the lines. And she said, "You're very good at being introspective." I was like, "Oh, yay. So I am doing it correctly." So I think we kind of put too much pressure on ourselves when somebody says, do an introspection work or whatever, that, oh, am I doing it right? So yeah, but it does make sense. And also, like I say, sitting here with you and learning about the masculine, the feminine, etc., it's definitely shown me, it's given me understanding. So I now realize why I react the way I do, or when these things come up, it's like, Courtney said this, or we discussed this in the episode, and now it makes sense. So because it makes sense, I can now deal with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Yes.
then you can kind of come up with ways and means to either do the journaling or to kind of explore the topic more, so that you can find that healing. And if you are the sort of the godly person, the Christian, you can go and sit and pray about it, because at least now you've got
Yes.
the words, and you've got something
Absolutely.
that you can actually describe in that makes sense to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know what I think a good point is in this, in understanding your inner child, is you'll often find, I don't know how many arguments you've been in with people, but when somebody says you're acting like a child, have you ever had that? Or, or your response is very childlike. And if you actually take a step back and you introspect or look back at how you responded or reacted to a trigger, it very much well could have been your inner child reacting to the trigger, and not you in your adult supposed learned self responding in a place of calmness and rationale. Instead, you're reacting from your inner child wound.
That makes so much sense. Okay. Yeah, it was like, start acting your age, child.
But absolutely, but your wound will be triggered and you will respond as that inner child would have responded. And that's why it's also so important to always listen. Even when you are having a heated argument with someone or a disagreement, if that kind of response comes up from them, actually do a little bit of a look back, and say, is this something that I need to work on? Because maybe it is, my inner child is wounded and needs this aspect fixed in order for me to move forward in a more healed manner, where I can be more rational in my responses, as opposed to being heavily reactive from a place of woundedness.
Okay. Yeah, that does make a lot of sense. It really
So
does.
I've had a lot of that. I mean, especially obviously in divorce, we have it all the time, and sometimes it's said in malice, but I have like looked back at myself a few times and been like, that was an inner child wound. I reacted in that way because my inner child felt vulnerable and scared and fearful.
Yes.
And it was my inner child reacting, as opposed to my adult self from a learned perspective responding. And it's very important to make the differentiation.
So then I'm also wondering, if we are dealing with teenagers and such, I am there, you are getting there. When they do react in a situation of discipline or reprimand or something like that, and they do come out as that there is something childish going on, I wonder if we can then look at that and say, are they reacting from their wounded inner child? And maybe sit with them and discuss that a bit. Take note, because they ain't going to be dealing with you if they're in that kind of mood. But maybe at a later stage, just say, let's talk about this. Are you feeling this, or are you feeling that? Or
or why did this trigger you the way that it did?
Yes.
But also, I think it's important to understand that transition from being a child to becoming a teenager, and the whole teenage aspect is a transition from being a child to becoming an adult.
Yes.
And it is such a testing stage. And I think for you and I, as single moms with no men in our homes to help direct our sons, it is incredibly difficult to rein them in as well, in terms of they're testing the boundaries. They want to see how far they can push. They in their natural minds are, I'm the man of the house now. No, sir, you are not. You are still a child. I am the man of the house.
Because I have the issue where both of my boys are now taller than I am. So every form of reprimand, I have to sit them down and say, gents, we need a chat.
Exactly. My son is 12. He's as tall as I am. And I'm like, good Lord, But the fact of the matter is that it's such a testing stage as it is. And a lot of their inner child wounds are also still going to be in this stage of their life. But I think it's about teaching our kids to be very self-aware. Number one, they must understand their emotions. Let's dissect why you are feeling this triggered. What has got you to the point that you are almost uncontrollable? And I think about creating those boundaries of these are the things that we as humanity, number one, but also in this house, these are the things we will not tolerate. And it's for these reasons. Respect works both ways, but I am the adult. I am the director of the family, and we need to have this discussion. You need to feel safe and secure in this space. I also need to feel safe and secure in this space. And so we've got to find the middle ground where I'm directing you, but you are coming to the party and making sure that you're showing up for yourself, but also for me as your parent. And it's hard because they do push. And I think this is also a space where we need to make sure that they understand that this is us showing up for them and not us trying to prune them.
Yeah. And I think you also raised quite a good point there, because it's something that I've always done with my boys, and then touch wood, it's definitely worked in our situation, where whenever I said to them, please, I need you to do this, or this is the situation, here are the boundaries, I've always explained why. So I've never, ever just said, because I said so. Do you know what I mean? There's always been a very logical reason behind the why, and that has worked. It's worked for us. Because now they realize that I'm not just being mean, being nasty, stopping them from doing what they want. They have a legitimate reason as to the why.
Absolutely.
So, that's, I think if you can adopt that, maybe give it a try. You know, I'm not saying that I am the be all and end all in parenting, but like I say, for all the years that I've done this as a single mother, that has definitely worked. It's definitely worked for us.
I think also going back to the, possible wounded inner child with the teenagers is, inner wounds develop when children start, like when children are really young, they've got that freedom to express themselves openly, to express joy and creativity and vulnerability and wonder of the world and all things. And then as they get older, suddenly it's like compressed, you're not allowed to have emotion. You're not allowed to be so loud. You're not allowed to, do all these things. But then also that false expectation, and this is where social media is so dangerous, is it's got this false expectation of what makes you good enough, what makes you worthy, how you have to look, how you have to present yourself. And then they start to experience rejection and being told that they're too emotional, too much, or not enough. And this is where the inner child starts getting wounded. But also, apart from that, it's when you feel that people that are closest to you are not showing up for you, or didn't defend you, or broke you down, whether it was intentional or not. The people that you trusted the most turned on you. Creates a massive inner child wound, where then those people will battle to trust anyone or move beyond a level of vulnerability, because they feel, if I expose my full and truest self to this person, they're going to destroy me. I'm going to feel the same lonely, scared, afraid child again. And I think those are things that we've just got to be conscious of as parents, that we're not creating that within the children. As well as like even little girls with eating and that. You create inner child wounds around food and eating and weight, when it's always brought up as being an issue. You're eating too much. You're not allowed to eat sweets. You're going to get fat. That creates an inner child wound, where then the child will grow up with massive issues with food and around food and weight, and it's really a big problem that I see in teenage girls now, is that they're so conscious, but it's also social media. The social media has created massive issues in self-perception. So that's my 2 cents on inner child and the teenagers. But I think it is important to sit down with them and dissect it and teach them introspection. Let me sit with this and find out why I'm triggered by this comment or by this person's behavior or this experience, And I think also there's a difference between an inner child wound and then a teenager pushing boundaries. Like sometimes they are just seeing how far they can push us, and it's not necessarily a an issue of inner child wound, but more just them
flexing,
seeing how far they can push our blood pressure.
Well, I think it's them determining what their boundaries are at an extreme level. Yeah, I think it's also, creating that safe space to have those conversations. Like I've realized with the boys, if I sit them down and have a chat with them, I'm not going to get very far. But if we are in the car, going to school, going on a trip, something like that, that's when the boys will talk to me. Okay, Dylan, I don't have a problem with. He'll tell me anything, anytime, anyhow, anyway. Vaughan, on the other
Yes.
hand, it takes us going for a walk, or so there's something that's happening and there's no eye contact, and that generally gives them that space that they can actually open up. So
Yes.
it's also understanding your child. You can't, because children
Absolutely.
are so flipping different. You can't you can't say, well, this has worked for the one, it's going to work for the other.
Exactly.
You've got to understand your children enough and have those conversations with them so that you can create the space that is safe enough for them to be able to open up to you. So find out what that is. Dylan, it's usually while I'm trying to watch something, which has its issues in itself. But like I say, with Vaughan, it is in the car on the way home from school or whatever the situation. But it is usually something where we're not having eye contact.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I think also it's so important to also note that having inner child wounds does not mean that you had a bad childhood or that your parents were not good parents. Every single human has inner child wounds because it's how, as a child, you learn to protect yourself. You build up these barriers. Every single human has inner child wound. No one's going to say that through their childhood they were not negatively affected by something that then has a ripple effect on how they react or respond in their adult lives, because that is how our triggers are formed, is through our childhood experiences. And I think one of the biggest inner child wounds that I've seen is that so many people feel that love has to be earned.
Yes.
And that it's not free.
Yes.
It doesn't come from people seeing your value and just loving you for who you are. They feel that it has to be earned. And if they're not trying to earn it, then it can't be right. Then something's wrong, And that's a huge inner child wound that many people don't work on. I mean, you've probably seen it through dating as well. Is you kind of feel like if it's too easy, it can't be true.
It's actually, because that's exactly what I was thinking when you were talking, was like the dating stuff. And it's like, it's not so much that the love is free, or it is an earned thing, definitely, okay? That I have to do this to get that reaction, or I have to react like this.
Yes.
So it's like trying to understand the other person and their love language, and making sure that I now feed that love language and that I'm speaking their love language to them. It's exhausting. A relationship, yes, it's going to have issues, and yes, there are going to be things that you've got to work out, but it does also have to be both ways.
It does, absolutely. And I think also, you've got to also understand both people are individuals that have been through a lot of life, and there has to be grace and allowance for a person to be who they are, warts and all, for lack of a better expression. And I think when a person feels free to be who they are and express themselves in the way that is most authentic to them, that is their truest, best selves. And you either take it or you leave it. But you can't go into an adult relationship and think that you're going to change someone from who they've always been. That's also not your job as a partner or a potential partner to someone. It's not your job to change them or try and fix them. Everybody's journey is their own, and that's why self-development and introspection and that is so important, because only you can show up for yourself. No one can come in and fix your inner world. You are the only one that's in control of that. And while we're on this point, I just want to talk about, what kind of imprints the inner child wound can have on us as adults, such as like the fear of abandonment, or I don't know if you've ever experienced like that chronic people pleasing, like you'll bend over backwards, touch your heels, to keep people happy or to please them.
To my own
yeah, exactly. Like self-sacrificial. I always say that I'm like a person that's like self-sacrificial. I'll like kill over before I stop like saying yes.
Yeah, but then do you also find, like, on that vein, that you won't go and ask for help because you don't want to put another person in that position?
Yes. And that's exactly this. This is exactly what I'm talking about, is you'll never ask for help, but you'll do whatever you can to help somebody else. And then another point is the difficulty in trusting others.
Yes, definitely.
Or even being vulnerable around other people. You don't even want to fully expose yourself for who you are and what your needs and wants are. You just focus on them and push yourself to the side. Again, very self-sacrificial. And another one would be feeling like you're not enough and not deserving. And then overworking to try and prove your worth, overgiving to try and prove that you're worthy of a connection or a gift or a whatever it is. You'll overdo things.
Yeah.
Overgive is a big one.
Can I give a real life example here?
Yes.
Think about the businesswoman who has that kind of wound. Okay. So she is fingers here. Running her own business, but is too terrified to up her prices, even though it's time.
Yeah.
So being scared because of that lack of self-worth and self-value.
Yes.
And I think on the flip side, that has had its, not the pricing side, but on the flip side, the self-worth and self-value is because now when anybody steps into my studio or comes into contact with me, it's always all about them. So that it has had a benefit where it has now created a safe space for them, because they're getting all of my attention, because I want them to feel happy and them to feel worthy and them to feel safe in the space that is a scary space to be in. So it does, even though the wounds might be wounds, I think we can use them as a benefit.
Absolutely.
So there's always that silver lining, no matter what we've gone through. And also those childhood wounds do shape our future and give us beautiful tools, because we experienced it, to be able to be there for somebody else or help somebody else.
Absolutely. But someone recently said to me, we were having a discussion, and this person said to me, like, they would hate to ever be in a position where they hurt someone, like if they get too close too quickly and then it doesn't work out, or there's logistics issues that, the relationship can't like progress past a point, but you've already got to this point and now feelings have been caught, and but there's a strong likelihood that logistically or for some other reason this relationship is not going to work out. And my advice was, everything in life is a lesson. You can't say, I'm going to block myself from this experience with this person or this job opportunity or this whatever, because I might get rejected or I might get hurt or it might not work out. Because what if it does work out? What if it's the best decision you've ever made?
Yes.
And if it doesn't, you've tried something new. You've given your all and you've grown as a person through the experience, whether it was that you had a whirlwind, magnificent love affair with someone that you felt totally in love with, and okay, it didn't work out in the end because of whatever reason, but you had an amazing experience with a beautiful human being.
And
or
you can.
Exactly. Everything is a lesson. And so to cut your nose off to spite your face and say, well, I'm just not going to allow myself this experience for the in case is just so damaging, actually. And that reflects again back on an inner child wound is you'd rather shut yourself off than allow yourself to experience life. Go for the job interview, even if you think it's out of your range. Try it. You might surprise yourself. It might be the experience of a lifetime. It might be the turning pivotal point of your career. Fall in love with the dude that lives 600 kilometers away. And, and I've got one of my best friends is in a long distance relationship and they are so perfect for each other. So I think don't cut yourself off. Yes. You've got to allow yourself to experience life, to deal with those fears. And that's where then you say, why do I want to stop myself from this experience? Why do I want to not live in this now?
It's a fear. It's a fear of rejection. It's a fear of failure. It's a fear of ridicule.
Exactly. But these are inner child wounds. Like as an adult, I don't care what Susie's doing because I'm living my life and I'm trying to learn myself, about myself. And I want to move to the next best version of me, not worried about what Susie thinks of my journey. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that is kind of where everybody needs to be focused, is that this is your journey. You wake up on your own at 68 years old. What are your feelings of the life that you lived?
Yes.
Because Susie's not even in the picture anymore. Every single person in your life moves. Exactly. So to focus your attention or your self-perception on the views of others or the fear of being rejected or ridiculed or whatever is just so, for lack of a better expression, I'm going to say stupid.
I agree. Totally agree.
Because they're so irrelevant in your long-term life. And you've allowed the fear of other people's opinions to control how you choose to authentically live your life. Just seems so childish.
There we go. Back to that.
Yes. And so we go back to introspection. Why do I feel like I need Susie's approval to do this in my life? Why am I even worried about what Susie's going to say or think? Does it even make sense?
Exactly. No, you're absolutely right. Yeah. And again, it's that whole back to social media, presenting yourself in social media and hoping that, it is. And to all the young ones who might be listening to this, you do get to this age where you suddenly realize, honestly, it's a load of rubbish, stressing about what other people are thinking. And yeah, for me to put myself on camera was a monster. You can ask my friends the amount of conversations and such that I've had with them about, I really, really want to do this, but I'm terrified. And it's like, Ash, really? Just try it. So it has taken a very long time for me to voice notes. Do you know how long it took for me to actually start voice notes? Because I was like, shame, the other person has to listen to me. Voice, because it does tend to come across as quite young, when in a voice note. So I sound all high-pitched and overexcited and such. But then now I've suddenly realized, do you know how much easier it is that I don't have to spell because I can't spell. So now I can, and also they now hear the tone of my voice, the sort of the way that I want them to hear the message.
I absolutely love your voice notes. Like when you send me a voice note, I promise you it puts the biggest smile on my face. I'm just like, oh, that was so amazing.
Thank you. Wake myself up.
No, it's always so amazing.
Yeah.
Like a little burst of positive energy.
Thank you. All right. I think we've got about 10 minutes left. So should we start looking at ways to like light-hearted ways that people can start healing the inner child or taking experience, because I do know that if they, we all told we must find our purpose, but how the heck do we do
Yeah.
that? So what about
Yeah.
just randomly saying, I'm interested in growing a herbal tea garden? Go on YouTube and start watching some videos. Start seeing, if there are things that interest you and that you do want to try, go and start dipping your toe into the Google searches and the YouTube videos and such, and seeing, what could potentially heal. And what other ways have you found, Courts, that have given you the freedom to start healing that inner child, besides getting older and realizing that it actually has nothing to do with anybody else? It's none of their flipping business.
So on a serious level, it's the introspection, dissecting why I responded childishly, or in a way that was not necessarily with adult maturity, and then working back to the inner child wound. Where did this actually stem from, that I'm so triggered by this experience? But then it's also about going back to your inner child and doing creative things that make you feel happy and safe and enjoyable. Like, I think we had a discussion earlier about like baking with the kids or doing a creative craft, and interacting with the children brings out your inner child and makes you feel more secure in your home environments as well, because you're not constantly just stressing about all these things that obviously create more pressure and insecurity and the fear of not being enough. I mean, we all still have that. It's not going to go away. It's just how we deal with it and how we respond to triggers in our lives. And I think doing more of a creative crafts helps you to just come back to your inner child and do a little bit of inner work there.
What do you do? I'm putting you on the spot.
What do I do, like, for inner child?
Yes.
So I am quite, being a Capricorn, quite serious. I do have a very goofy side, but especially when I'm working on myself internally, I'm quite serious about how I deal with things. So I really do dissect, where did this inner wound come from? And how do I make my inner child feel safe now with me as an adult? I actually created an image for this because I felt like I needed myself to hug my inner child.
Yes.
Just be like, it's actually okay. Like, you are okay now. Because I really am okay. Like, I'm not hung up on issues from my past. I do have certain triggers, but I deal with them in a far more healed space than I used to. And this is only the last 2 years, like, since I've got divorced. So when I got divorced, I really went on a journey of like self-understanding. Because I was like, you know what? I've spent so much of my life not actually knowing who I am and why I have these triggers. And I've always hinged on other people for validation, for security, for finance, for emotions, for like everything. It was always hinged on others. And I was like, I need to do this journey of finding myself, who I am, what my triggers are, and how to support myself on my own, that I don't actually need anyone else. It would only be a want or a would like, but not a need.
Yes, and then at least you're whole, so that when they come into your life or into your space, they don't have to fix anything because you've done all the work for them, basically.
But also, when I do allow someone into my space, it must be because they bring me peace, not chaos.
Yeah.
And that's come from a place of deep introspection and healing, is that now I know that I feel safe with myself in the home and the environment and the place that I'm at in my life at the moment. And if I'm going to allow somebody else into my space, they need to bring peace into that space. Because I will never go to a place of allowing chaos back into my life, or where I'm self-doubting or feeling like I'm not enough. If somebody creates that kind of disorder in my nervous system, it's not going to work for me.
Yeah, and it's good to have
And
those
that's,
boundaries too.
yes, and this is coming from a place of healed inner child wounds.
Yeah.
And so, like, a lot of my life, like, I'm no longer a diehard people pleaser. I'm happy to say no.
Good for you.
Boundaries, if it's not, like, in work, if it's not making me money, I won't do it. Yes, a lot of my work is my passion, but I also have children to feed. I also have a roof that I need to pay for, and fuel to pay for. And I can't do that if I'm working for free. And so those are boundaries
Yes.
that I never had before. I would bend over backwards, do the most, use up all my energy and my resources to then have almost no return, which makes no sense.
It doesn't make
No one works for
free. No.
free. So it's those kinds of things that, like, that kind of behaviors where you can see your shift from wounded inner child to healed inner child. And again, I'm saying this, like, with all due respect, is that it's not that you had bad parents or a bad childhood. It is just a fact that every single human will have inner child wounds, because also a lot of children will have these things happen to them that they don't even tell their parents about.
Yeah.
And they develop a wound that their parents don't even know that this situation has arisen, and obviously then has a long-term ripple effect in how they behave and react as adults.
Yeah. It's hectic, hey? But I think the lessons that we can take out of today is, number one, give your children the space to be able to talk to you. It is going to be difficult, so if you can, the younger you can start, the better. But don't ever think that it's a lost cause. Your child might look at you oddly if you all of a sudden you want to have deep conversations with them, but persist. And then also have those deep conversations with yourself, even if it is through listening to music, listening to YouTube, or just going out and doing something for yourself, journaling, walking, etc., and start to heal those music. Yeah, and I mean, again, if you've got any questions, you're welcome to ask us, and we will do what we can to assist in any way that we can.
I also just want to touch on the discussing with the children. It's so, often we say we want to protect them from real life, but actually by doing that, you actually are doing them a
disservice.
Yes, because they then don't actually know anything about inner child wounds, number one. Number two, they have no introspection skills, because you've always made them, oh, everything's cute and fluffy and don't worry, and only when they are in their adult life are they like, what the hell, And so it's so important to speak to your children about how their days have been, what's happening in their life, how certain situations made them feel, how the fight with their best friend made them feel, and dissect it with them, and do introspection with them on those topics, so that they can learn to do it for themselves as they grow older.
Absolutely.
So, and the reassuring them, you are enough. You are perfect just the way you are. Perfect. Okay. I'm not saying perfect. No one's perfect, but you can only show up in the best version of who you are and what you are. And that should be your highest expectation of yourself, is to just show up as your best self. And that is perfect enough.
Yes.
And so it's making sure your kids know they are safe. Their feelings matter. They didn't deserve what happened to them, but this is how they can respond going forward or next time. And then also encouraging them to reconnect with things that bring them joy, and what are the things, like, I've also noticed my kids, and it's technology, they have very few hobbies. So I'm like, TV and Roadblocks or whatever they play these days are not hobbies. Well, not as far as I'm concerned anyway.
No, you're absolutely right.
But yeah, I think it's about encouraging the children to delve into creativity, nature, music, playfulness. Like the other day, I said to my kids, absolutely no TV, no cell phones. There's board games, there's novels, there's art and crafts. I want to see you guys doing something fun. And I was cooking, and I always put my earphones in because our house is quite small. So I'll put my earphones in so that it doesn't interfere with them, and they don't really interfere with me in that space of time. And I popped my head around the kitchen and saw them playing the Harry Potter game, where you put the cards
Oh, yeah.
on the head and you've got to try and guess which characters and whatnot. And it honestly made me so happy to see them just sitting there playing a board game together.
Yes.
And it's so important to remind the children to be children.
Yeah. I think it also, as they're growing up, when you have those areas of play and creativity and all that sort of stuff, it starts to develop, and you'll definitely start to see the vocation that they're actually gearing themselves up for. Dylan is incredibly imaginative, so he used to sit with his train sets and used to build them, and then Thomas and Percy would go along, and he'd have all this. He would just be telling stories the whole time as he played with his trains. Whereas Vaughan was engineering. He was designing. He was backwards engineering. He was like, well, this is what I want over there. So the bridge is over there, but I want it to come past here. So therefore, and you could actually watch his little mind work and create it backwards. So now he's building computers. Dylan is writing stories. So you can definitely, you can see how if you give them the space to play, they will naturally develop into who they are, and you don't have to force anything.
Yeah.
So when it comes time for those questions of who are they going to be when they grow up, you've gathered information and you've kind of seen things, and as an adult or as a parent, you can kind of say, well, now I suggest maybe look at these options, So that playtime is important on so many different levels, not only mental development.
No, absolutely. I agree 1000%.
Yeah. Okay then, Quartz, that was delightful. Yeah. Lovely. I always love having chats with you. It's special.
I know it is always fun. It's always nice to connect and talk about things that resonate with us, I think,
So ladies, gents, please be part of the conversation. Join in. Give us the comments. Email us if you don't want to go onto the actual platform. But remember, these podcasts, they go live on a Sunday evening on Spotify, and the YouTube episode goes live on a Wednesday evening. And both of those are at 7 o'clock in good old South African time. So it is the perfect time to kind of sit there with your handcraft while you're doing the dishes or whatever after the cooking, and let your kids play those board games, and you get a little bit of time to yourself, self-care, while you listen to us discuss all these topics. Next week will be the last episode of the series. Yes. And then we can start telling you what's coming up. Please tag friends. Please tag people who you know would actually enjoy this. And thank you again for listening, and have a really inspired, wonderful, blissful week.
Yes, absolutely. I think that was awesome. Thank you, Ash. It's always lovely to connect and share with our listeners and friends. And I'm looking forward to our wrap up next week. And I think it's going to be good. And I'm excited for the topics that are coming up, which we'll also just touch on next week.
We'll keep it as a surprise. If you want to know what's coming up, you have to
stay tuned.
All right, cool. Have a wonderful week. And
thank you so much, Ash. You too. Lovely to see you.
You too. Cheers. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for spending this time with us. Follow, subscribe, and share Luxe Lens with the woman who needs it. We're rising together. We'll see you next week. Bye.